Good morning and welcome to our General Assembly. I am Amanda Kitt-Tollett. I'm a 2008 alumni here at Tarleton, a former adjunct, and now currently Chief of Staff to President Hurley and Vice President for University Relations. I want to welcome you all today, everybody in person and everybody joining us virtually and from our outreach campuses in Fort Worth, Midlothian, Waco, and the Rellis campus. Would those of you who are able please stand for the national anthem and the posting of the colors by our Tarleton State University Corps of Cadets.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we marched?
Thank you, Drs. Westbrook and Robertson, the Sound and the Fury, and the Chamber Choir. I would also like to thank and recognize our local officials in attendance today, as well as our Tarleton alumni. And last but certainly not least, the man that has led us through these unprecedented times and kept our great university strong and growing. Please welcome the 16th President of Tarleton State University, Dr. James Hurley.
Good morning. Would Dr. Westbrook and Dr. Robertson, would you come back out. I know you were just here. Did they leave already? Come on, guys. Get out here front and center. Let's give them a big round of applause for all they do. That was an amazing, I don't know how much you guys got to see out here, but the collection of the students in unison on Zoom singing the national anthem. I can't even log on to Zoom and conduct a Zoom session, and yet you're performing like that. And Dr. Westbrook put together, we wanted to have all of our students here. All of you know Dr. Westbrook is rah, rah, let's bring down the house, let's bring the thunder. Literally one of our bands is named the Thunder, right? We couldn't do that, obviously, through these times. So he put together that collection of videos over the past few years that our students have been able to perform, and did some other neat things for us to have this. So thank you both for your leadership. Thank you for providing hope and optimism for these students. I know, Gary, your students, we were going to have 140 plus for the first time ever in our marching band for our inaugural D1 football season and other athletic seasons this year. And that's been stifled until spring, right? We're going to do it a semester late, but you're still keeping your kids active, and they're practicing, and they're enthusiastic about spring. So thanks to both of you for your leadership. Thank you. So let's start with our General Assembly. Our greatest adventure awaits. How many of us truly thought that here we are in September, we're having to socially distance ourselves. We're still wearing these lovely things, right? At least we all look pretty uniform today. Thank you for wearing your Texan mask. I, for one, misjudged and categorized the longevity of COVID-19. And you've heard me say that. I thought that we would eradicate this flu-like virus by the end of April, maybe May, and then we would resume back to some sense of normalcy. And I don't think I was alone. I think a lot of other non-scientific based people and leaders felt the same. Well, it didn't occur, and we're still navigating the most unprecedented time in the history of the world, in particular the history of higher education. There's never been a point in higher education where literally for a few weeks, because some countries continued, China, for example, they shuttered for 3 to 4 weeks, and then their students returned back. But for about, call it 3 to 4, maybe a month, every institution across the world went from face-to-face instruction, face-to-face encounters, to virtual learning. Literally in less than, call it a 10 to 15 day span. I don't know that we'll ever, I hope that we never see that type of occurrence again, but we do know this. That was the first, and they can only be one first. Right? So we'll never experience a time like that again, because then it becomes a second occurrence and we're somewhat braced for impact. And it was challenging. And so that's why I want to get into a lot of thank yous. I want to start with Chancellor Sharp, our Board of Regents, and our leadership. When you're sitting in the president's office and you have very few people around, Provost Murray, Lori, our CFO, Matt Kelly, all of our team, we're sitting there thinking, okay, how do we literally flip thousands of classes online when we're not a predominant online institution? How do we teach certain courses that have never been taught online, not even in a hybrid fashion? How do we quickly transform ourselves into an online institution? And that's essentially what we had to do. And so as a collection of presidents in the system, more than ever, we're always proud to be part of the Texas A&M system. But I can tell you, I was most proud during those few weeks because we had unilateral resources and unilateral collective thought around how we get through this together. And that's much better than being on an island by yourself. And Chancellor Sharp and his team have been tremendous in terms of financial resources, helping us navigate, think about contact tracing and all the things we're going to talk about in September at our State of the University. But so many things had to come together quickly. And our regents really stepped up and helped with change some of the rules of the game, if you will, literally overnight so we could conduct business. My executive cabinet and staff, it was for about a 2 to 3 week period, I didn't know if I should get out of the fetal position or not, right? I mean, it was just challenging. And no matter who I called, every other president in the country was in the same fetal position. We were just simply trying to figure out how are we going to navigate over the next 2 to 3 weeks. And everyone was asking the same question that I would ask them because none of us knew. I'm thankful that we have an incredible executive cabinet. And they were there when a lot of you were waiting on decisions, rightfully so, and you were asking very fair questions. It was us that had to quickly find answers, right? Make up answers, create answers, and create solutions. Solutions that would get us through the next 2 to 3 months. And I want to thank each of you. I want to start with our faculty. And I've thought about this over the last couple of days. If I had to attribute, let's say, one word, one verb, to each of these groups, I would start with our faculty. I would say agility. Some of you scratch your head and you think, agility? Google agility and you'll say, oh, that makes some sense. The ability to quickly transform thought, to pivot, to go from teaching ag, ranch management, those types of things, nursing, that's really tough to teach online, to teach in those online. You were agile. You were nimble. Some of you were kicking and screaming the whole way, and I understand that, and that's okay, because all of us were. But without you and without your commitment, we could not have had the continuity of learning that we had, and I sincerely mean that. To our staff, I think of the word innovation, because as you were preparing to flip these classes suddenly, they were having, on the back end, they were starting the process of coaching up some of you in this room that had never taught an online class. Some of you were novice computer users. I get it. Some of you, it was challenging because the curriculum itself is a face-to-face embedded curriculum. It takes you mentoring and leading the students through some of those labs and some of those classes. Well, the staff worked diligently on the back end, especially on our technology side, to get us ready. We had to spend a lot of financial resources to expand our bandwidth. We created, it's way out of my purview of leadership, but I can tell you a scope of leadership. But Lord, we were creating hotspots in areas of this campus that you would think, why would we need a hotspot there? Because students that did not have access to broadband, to high-speed internet, we were the conduit of learning. They still had to come on this campus. They were literally sitting in their vehicles learning. We had to create those spots. And so our staff became incredibly innovative. And our students, and I think the word there is trust. Now, on September 30th, we're going to have our State of the University address. And until 3 days ago, I was planning on having the State of the University as part of this ceremony. And I started figuring out that we have a lot to celebrate. We have a lot to talk about. And that continued to grow in terms of time. And because we wanted this to be our successful launch of our comprehensive strategic planning process and plan, we needed to give our team ample time to do that. And so I pulled back on the state of the university. That's first and foremost. Secondly, when Lori and I present to you our fiscal budget, we want to be precise in our numbers. And today we would have used a lot of assumptions. Well, 3 weeks from now, those assumptions will be very real because we close census data, we know the collections, we know where we stand in revenue. And it's good. We are in a good place. Are we in a great place? No, I don't think there's an institution in the country in a great place. Are we in a very good place? Absolutely. We had a record enrollment year in the midst of a global pandemic. We had record enrollment. We have our largest freshman class. We have the most diverse class in the history of this institution, and that's a good thing. And I want to thank Dr. Garza and his team, because what they were able to sell to students, not only our returning students, and oh, by the way, our freshman retention rate remained at 70%. Now, our plan, obviously, we wanted to increase that to 71, 72. We want to continue to climb that ladder. But when so many other institutions, I've been on maybe, I don't know, Tana could tell you 4 or 5 calls in the last few days of media outlets wanting to know, what did you guys do? Now, this is unofficial. On the 30th, we will have official, but we're pretty confident that we had the largest percent of growth among public institutions in the state. Private data is a little more difficult to garner right now, but all of you know Javier. He's a mathematician. He'll sniff it out by the 30th. I'm pretty confident we will have the largest percent of growth in the state of Texas. That's a good thing. And you know what that equates to? The word trust. Our students trust us. I hope that they trust me as a president, but more importantly, I hope they trust you. And they have trusted you because they returned in record numbers and they enrolled in record numbers. And that's because their parents trusted us. And I understand, rightfully so, that a few of you, not many, but a few of you questioned whether or not this summer we should have conducted things like face-to-face duck camp, face-to-face student orientation, face-to-face Texan days where we bring prospective students in. We've already started recruiting next year's class. Because here's what you need to understand about me. We are not going to wait and react after the fact. We are going to grow our way out of this pandemic. And that's why we're in the position we're in today. A lot of institutions are getting ready to make some very difficult decisions. We made some of those very difficult decisions. We lost some of our family members this year because of our previous financial endeavors in terms of things that you're going to hear about in September, or on September 30th. We've got to strengthen our reserve account. We've had the lowest reserve, months of reserve in the system for the previous 5 years. And it's not even close, unfortunately. We've got to strengthen that so when we encounter economic uncertainty like we encountered this year, we never have to do what we had to do. Because trust me, it's not fun asking members of our family to leave our institution, period. And I told Lori, our goal, both stated and it has to be embedded in our thoughts, is we can't go through those times again. We have to be better financially. We have to prepare ourselves for the uncertainty of tomorrow. And we're doing that. You'll learn more on the 30th. Our alumni and friends. So back to students, the trust, because I know we have students watching. Thank you for trusting us. And I think that because we were able to bring students here and their parents here over the summer, we displayed that we're going to do this as safely as we possibly can. And I think it resonated. And obviously, it turned out to be advantageous for us. And Javier, I thank you and Kelly for helping push and lead and show our parents and our prospective students that we can do this the right way. Alumni and friends, the financial support during these tough times were incredible. And on the 30th, again, I keep referring to that, you'll see the number that our alumni and friends of Tarleton invested in our young people. We gave away, at the end of this, we'll give away about $5.5 million from CARES, and every single penny went to our students. And I am thankful for that CARES Act fund, because the back end of that, the other 5.5-ish, and Lori gets really nervous when I start using numbers because I use Hurley math. And I round to what's convenient, right? She's right now giving me thumbs up, 10.5-ish. I've started adding the ish so she can lay off my case and ish. The other half of that portion, we were able to backstop what we had to extrapolate from what little reserve we did have to refund our students in the spring. And that was the right thing to do. It's tough, but it was the right thing to do. And it goes back to trust. We did what was right. We were the first institution, public institution. We were the first public institution in the state of Texas to offer the first round of refunds. A lot of people talked about it. And there are some students still receiving refunds. We issued the first. And I'm proud of Lori and her team, because I told them, if we're going to say this, then we need to do this. And that means if we're telling students and parents they're going to get a fair refund, then by golly, let's get the refunds out. Don't sit on the money. CFOs love sitting on that cash sometimes. I get it. I said, let's get it out. We got to get it back in the hands because they need it. And again, I think it goes back to the trust. It paid off. Our alumni and friends stepped up on top of the CARES Act, and they invested in our foundation. Rocky Harden, who's our new president of the foundation, my first call that I took was from Rocky saying, how can we help? How can the foundation help? How can we step up and help? And it was incredible. Our public officials, our congressmen, again, the first call that I made literally the day before we made our announcement was to our congressman, Roger Williams, and I said, Congressman Williams, we need money. We need assistance. We need help. We have we have students that don't even own a laptop computer, and we're getting ready to shutter this campus and tell them they have to learn online. I need some assistance here. And they reacted, and they helped, and he and others, our state senators, our reps, our mayor, our city and local officials. I know our mayor, we've worked really, really close with Doug, and we have a couple big announcements here in the next couple weeks that we're going to make. And it's back to that future-focused vision. And we're really excited about what's getting ready to happen in this community. And to grow the town-gown relationship is incredible. Our SSC and Sodexo partners, while we were thinking about bringing you back, SSC had to shift very quickly into a different routine and preparing. And those individuals on the front line, you need to thank them every day, right? Because they're putting themselves at risk when they go in and they clean. And that's important for us, because more than ever, we need that partnership to be strong, and it is strong. And they have stepped up. We have extended our partnership with them. I cannot tell you that the relationship is strengthening every single day. David Martin, who is here now, and our liaison, has worked really, really closely with them to try to meet your needs better. And we are getting closer to where we need to be. Sodexo, a lot of you didn't come back to campus, but I don't want you to forget, Lori, what was the note, Kelly, when everyone else moved out, we still had a couple, 400 students in the end, but there for the first 2 to 3 weeks, we still had a couple thousand students that stayed on this campus. The reason they stayed here was the simple fact that we were, and we still are, their best learning environment, right? They know they have hot meals, nutritious meals here. They know that they're safe. Keep in mind, 50% of our kids are first gen. And something around 40% of our kids are Pell eligible. So that means they could go back to environments far less healthy or safe than the environment we were providing. And it was a really eerie feeling not seeing you guys around. But what Kendall and I committed to was, and again, keep in mind, we hadn't been told that these make a difference. And so we were out on campus and we would spend time with these students that were still here because we knew they were here for a reason. Some of our kids had nowhere else to go. We talked to 4 young ladies, different occurrences. All 4 were migrant or homeless. They stayed until the very end. They were probably the last 4 that moved out of the dorm, and they couldn't wait to get back because we, Tarleton, we're that safe haven for them. Campus Works, you're going to learn more. They're a new partner with this strategic planning process. I don't want to spend too much time on them because we're going to talk about them a lot here in the end. Everyone that worked so hard to make today possible. This environment is not easy, and Joey and his team, Amanda's team, have done an incredible job. You're going to hear from individuals that are in several states today as part of Campus Works, and making all of that work through the technology is not easy, and so I'm very proud of them. New faculty members. I think we have roughly 20 here on campus this semester. And so we just kind of started with the fall semester. I know some of you are new, that you were added in the spring. And so I said, hey, let's start with fall. Those folks that were here in spring, you know, they're old hats now. And we'll give them a thumbs up. They can still come to the new faculty reception if they want. But we're proud of the new faces and the spaces they occupy now. New staff, we roughly have 25-ish on this list. This was as of August 1st. We've added some staff positions that we're going to talk about again in September. Some of the concerns from the faculty when we started creating some synergy with departments, we created the Center for Academic Excellence. And that was kind of a combination of 2 different departments. But what we found in that, with this uncertain time of online delivery, we needed some help in what I call content coaches, content experts, specifically online. And now every single college, Lori found the money, we hired those individuals. Every single college now has an online content expert or coach. Years of service. This is always really fun for me. So 25 years. I'm not, if you're here, it's hard because we are like half the capacity of this. A lot of folks are watching online. We know that. Joey gives me an update like every second. He's like, we're up to 2,000. We're up to 3,000. I see him back here. 25 years. Elizabeth Riggs, Deanna Powell, thank you for your 25 years of service. 30 years, so when I get finished, if you guys want to stand, 30 years, Arthur Lowe, Mark Shipman, Donna Strohmeyer, and Joseph Warner. And I want to stop here just a second. Is Donna here? Because these retina piercing lights is really hard to see out here. Donna's not here, but she's probably planning winter commencement right now. Donna's one of those ladies, the first time I met her, I thought, wow, man, she's tough. She's really abrasive, and she like yells at me, and I'm like, I'm not yelling at you, so stop yelling at me. And I get it now. She needed to yell at me. She was very appropriate in her comments, and she pulled off face-to-face commencement like no other. We were commended from the governor's office because one of his members was in attendance for one of our sessions. Her niece graduated. She was a first-gen student, her niece, of her family. And she wanted to be here. And she said, I felt far more safe at your commencement ceremony than I did at the restaurant after the commencement ceremony, which we all understand. I probably picked the 2 or 3 she went to. But that says a lot. Donna absolutely, literally, nearly killed herself to pull that off. She was out there. It was really hot the week leading up. We were one of the few institutions in the country that had face-to-face commencement. And I know a few of you got mad at me, and that's okay. I love you anyways, and someday you may forgive me and love me. Doubt it, but maybe. I'm okay with that. But we owed that to our students. We owed that to our students that invested 4, 5, 6, some even 7 years, some longer than that because life happened to them. We had a student that came back many, many years later that finished their degree because life happened to her. But she finished, and she was able to walk that stage, and she walked that stage because she's a single mom, 2 young kids. She wanted to show them that this is the way forward. That's why we did what we did. We didn't make money off commencement. We lost money. But it's the value of placing our students and their desire to walk that stage and to signify as that first generation graduate that this is the way forward. That's why we did. Donna did a great job. And if we could, if she's watching virtually, let's let her hear us. So thank you, Donna. I love Donna, even though she doesn't always love me. 35 years. Randy Rozier, I know. 40 years, Vicki McCamey. She is the recipient of our Legacy and Service Award, so I'm going to be delivering her a special gift for her legacy and service. That's on the staff side. 45 years, Bob Newby. And then 50 years, I think Dr. McCoy won this award last year, the Legacy and Educational Excellence. So I started these 2 awards, and it was important that I wanted to celebrate those individuals, and sometimes it's perpetual. So is Dr. McCoy here? No? He came last year to get his award. I'll make sure he gets it this year, and he may come in the second session. We're doing this twice. I will make sure that he understands that a lot of people are waiting for him to retire so they can be next on this list. But as long as he's here, he's here. And I think that's important to recognize longevity. Promotion and tenure. So these next slides, it's a mix. So bear with me, okay? Some of these individuals have been promoted from assistant to associate. Some have been promoted from associate to full. Some are already tenured, but they have been promoted into new roles of leadership. So if your name is on there, we have each of our colleges represented. If your name's not there, make sure that we know. I mean, it's important that Dr. Murray and Amanda Tarleton, our Chief of Staff, know so we can get this cleaned up before September 30th. Promotion and tenure, again, just a continuation. I know Nathaniel, I noticed he got his promotion and then he went off to D.C. for bigger and better things. We're very proud of him up there and the work he's doing with their census. And again, these I think are more along the promotion side. Most of those folks already carried tenure. Some administrative changes. Of course, you already met Amanda Tarleton. She is our new Chief of Staff. She was the Chief of Staff for Representative Sheffield. She was also an adjunct professor. She is learning this role, no doubt about it. Her only experience in higher ed was obviously as an adjunct professor, but she loves this institution. She bleeds purple deeply. She's also assumed a new role as Vice President for University Relations, so Marcom is rolled into that as well. The reason that Amanda stood out among the other candidates was, I want to be very transparent, she understands this. I told Amanda, 6 months from now, you are going to earn what we pay you and why we hired you, and that's to shine during the 87th, I think, legislative session. We have to outperform every other institution during that session. And she and I will spend a lot of time in the spring in Austin. And while I'm there, Javier Garza will be out there too, because we're taking our MOU partnership on the road and we're going to double down. We had 35, you'll see these numbers, 35 distinguished high school partners last year. We're going to double that number. We would have hit 70 if COVID wouldn't have crashed our party, and our goal was 25. We visited, what was our number, 82-ish? 87? We visited 87 high schools. In fact, someone caught me in a hallway. I was on the phone, and it was Kent Scribner, the superintendent of Fort Worth ISD. And I answered. I said, "You're the only superintendent I would answer a call 7 minutes before General Assembly. What's up?" He said, "Well, I need you. We need to have breakfast soon or lunch because we want to get our MOU announced." We deliberately delayed that announcement in March because it's going to be a big deal. The size of that district, it will make national headlines, and so we want to capture that. And so that will be our first out of the gate, and it's going to be a big one. I want to go next to Dr. Michael Huggins. Is Dr. Huggins here? Is he here in this session? I know some are coming in the second session as well. And some leaders we asked to wait because the first session was kind of starting to get over capacity, and we wanted to be cautious. If you all would have sat down in the front like good Presbyterians do, instead of all the Baptists in the back, we would have had a much more balanced, more socially distanced assembly. I love Dr. Huggins so much that I gave him about a month, and then I stole his admin assistant. And that's probably why he's not here today. Cheryl Smith, who all of you love, Cheryl has stayed longer than she wanted to. She wanted to retire earlier, and I begged Cheryl to stay and get me through some transition, and she has. Cheryl will retire here in December. And so we have hired Lauren Gillespie to replace Cheryl. So when you call over to the president's office, or when all of those parents that have an urgent need that call the president's office, they, instead of hearing Cheryl now, they will hear Lauren, and we're really excited about the transition. And we're especially proud of Cheryl. I know Cheryl's watching from home, and we're very proud of the work that she's done in the president's office. She is such a great person. She has that calming voice. Sometimes she comes into my office when she hears me on the phone and I get somewhat excited about a conversation I'm having. She'll come in and sit down and say, "What do you want to talk about?" And she knows I need that calm, soothing Cheryl. And I found Lauren to be the same. So Dr. Huggins, we welcome him, and we also wish him well in finding a good admin assistant. Let's give Cheryl a hand. I know she's watching. Would you do that, please? Thank you. Cheryl's the best. Tana's the best, too. Dr. Gabe Cagwin. He is our new Vice President for Institutional Advancement. He is here. He is coming from Arizona State University, that really small institution up there and outside of Scottsdale. They have, 120 billion people now at that institution. He was Director of Development, and we are so excited. Gabe, would you stand up and allow us to say thank you? Welcome. He's got lots of energy. I don't know if I can keep up with him. He's a fireball, and we're excited about his leadership. Tremendous experience. He has served as Director of Development. He's worked his way up the ranks. He was Director of Development for College of Business at Penn State. He's been at Buffalo, UCLA, Arizona State. This is his first role as a vice president. That's why we were able to snag him. Leaders lead, and leaders want to grow. He wanted to become a VP. I think someday he's going to make an outstanding university president, and I think the sky's the limit with him. You're going to see this $100 million capital campaign. We're going to give him about a month to close that one out, and let's get started on the next one. So we're happy to have him. And he has big shoes to fill. Dr. Kyle McGregor, who was VP for Institutional Advancement, did a wonderful job. Kyle and I became friends outside of just the institution. And a gentleman that I trusted very much, he left us for bigger and better things. He is now the president of National Life, Farm Life. It's a conglomerate in the state and across the country. And we're proud of him because that's one of our alumni really, moving into one of the most prestigious positions in the state and in his realm. So, and all of you know, Kyle is an ag at heart. I mean, he loves agriculture. He loves ranching and farming, and so he's in a great element. Dr. Lori Sharp is now our Dean of the University College. That's a new creation that we'll talk more about in September. We're proud of her. She's already doing incredible work with that department in tutoring and advising, etc. And Dr. Credence Baker, who you're going to hear from. Credence is our new dean. She was interim dean. Dr. Barry Lambert moved over to the College of Ag as our assistant dean there, associate dean, I'm not sure, but he's also still carrying the title of assistant VP for research until we get our VPR in place in January. So we're very proud of Dr. Baker and the work she's doing. So let's talk about why we're here, our strategic plan. So we should have launched this in March. Late March, early April was our launch date. We wanted to launch before we left. That was the concrete plan, and then COVID occurred, and then it became a very fluid plan. Campus Works is the company, or I'm sorry, the firm that we selected. It was unanimous with the selection committee. I want faculty and staff to know that you had representation, equal representation on that committee, and it was unanimous. They outshined all of the other firms. We're very excited about, and you're going to hear from Kevin and Liz. The CEO is joining us today. She is from, the company's based, I think, out somewhere around Boca. Kevin will clean us up, in Florida. She's there. She will be zooming in here in a few moments. Lots of energy, lots of excitement, and they have an incredible track record of building organic, from the ground up strategic plans, and that was important to me. I want this truly to be a ground up process. So you're going to hear from Liz. Kevin is here. He is our lead. He is the portfolio director, and he owns our portfolio. I love him. He's a former psychology professor. He and I had a very interesting, I am not a psychologist, as all of you know. I need one daily. He and I had a great meal at the Purple Goat last night, and so that was insightful and enlightening in its own right. And we'll be taking him to Heart 8 tonight with some other folks on the team. And it was a work, I mean, we just couldn't stop talking about the endless possibilities here. And then Chrissy, I love Chrissy. Every time Chrissy's joined us, she's been in Waco. And she has this I have to tell this story. She has this backdrop, and it's of her Waco campus. And I will admit, I was a novice Zoom user, as most of you in this room will not admit, but you know it's true. Many of us had not had to utilize Zoom before. I had never used Zoom. We used at the system level was WebEx, and then Skype with my son when he was at the academy. And so I was on Zoom the very first session with them, and she had this backdrop, and I thought, oh my gosh, somebody gave her the wrong campus location, and she's had to Zoom in from Waco. That's how dumb your president is. I didn't know you could put all of these backgrounds behind Zoom, and I thought, she's in Waco. Why is she in Waco? Right? And I didn't know. And some of you laugh, but you're like, yeah, it happened to me too. But this was like day one of this whole Zoom world for us, because we had to quickly decide, how are we going to handle, we have a launch in 3 weeks. We had to quickly shift, obviously. So why is this process important? Well, it's critically important. We have the greatest opportunity ahead of us in the history of this institution. And so our old strategic plan has been carried through one additional year. So that's why it's important. It's time. Our strategic plan has served its useful life, and it's time to move on. And it's time to design a new plan that will carry us through the next 10 years. And we're going to talk about that process. Some of you say, well, 10 years, that's a little odd. Why not 2 or 5 years? Well, you're going to hear why in just a few moments. Why 10 years? Just answer that one. What is the first step? The first step is today. The first step is learning from our chair, who you're going to meet in just a few moments, and also our committee and our leadership firm, which is Campus Works. Who will be involved? All of you. It's important that you have a voice. It's important that you have a say. It's important that you have a stake in the ground as we chart our path over the next 10 years. And our path is to be the premier comprehensive regional university in the nation. And we can do that. I promise you, we can do that. I promised you that we would grow. I promised you we would make some transitions, and we've done that. I promise you, if we remain diligent and focused and keep every single thought around doing what's best for our students over the next 10 years, we'll be able to evaluate why we are the premier. Do we have a strategic plan committee chair? All right. And the answer to that is yes, we do. And I want to talk about her in just a moment, but I want to share these 3 important dates. September 30th, that's our State of the University address. January 12th, again, that's that launch date. That's the start of the 87th regular called legislative session. Amanda and I will be spending a lot of time in Austin trying to fight and garner for more money. And this is going to be a tough session. We have redistricting in the midst of this session, which is always nasty in any state, more nasty in Texas because of the demographics that are changing. Certain areas are growing, certain areas are not. And then our SACS reaffirmation visit, April the 12th through the 16th. Dr. Jordan Barkley and his team are working very, very hard to ensure that our compliance certification is in order. Our QAP is in order. I feel good about the process. Dr. Sheely, who is our Vice President Liaison, I've worked a lot with him in the past. I think a lot of you know that I've served as chair or vice chair of a lot of committees across the SACS over the years, and so I feel really good about our knowledge of the SACS CLC process. I very much believe in it. It's healthy, and it's also, oh, by the way, starts our 10-year ticker, right? And so every 10 years, you're reevaluated for reaffirmation. At year 5, roughly between year 4 and 5, we have our 5th year report and 5th year evaluation. That's why I think it's important for us to have a 10-year strategic plan that aligns with our 10-year reaffirmation, et cetera. So let's talk a little bit about our chair. I'm trying to go back here. It may not. Can you take me back to the slide? Perfect. So we have selected Dr. Credence Baker to serve as our chair for this process. And several names, I apologize for that, several names were submitted to me for consideration through cabinet and deans to consider to serve as the chair. It was important for me that we found a person and we identified a person that would lead with transparency and would lead with incredible integrity, but more importantly, that this person would bring a very fair and balanced approach to the process. And in her role as Dean of the College of Graduate Studies, she will be more than fair because the faculty mix that she leads resides in each of the other colleges. It's a collection of faculty. So no one college, no one department can say, well, this college A is getting additional revenue, or they're getting a special place in the strategic plan because a person from their department is leading. And that was important to me. I want each of you to have an equal voice and an opportunity to lead through this. She's incredibly organized. I think she's a leader that we hope to keep here for many years because she has an incredibly high ceiling. And I trust her. I trust that the work that she will put forth and the energy that she's already put forth has solidified that we feel very good about her selection. She has a lot to talk about. She has folks she's going to introduce. It is an incredibly difficult job. Could you imagine leading a 10-year comprehensive plan for one of the fastest growing universities in the country? And could you imagine doing that as we navigate the most unprecedented time in higher education? And she also has to work with the president that's really, really progressive and aggressive. And she's done a great job of keeping me in my box. Like, okay, I heard you. Now I'm going to listen to everyone else. And I love her for it. So let's give Credence a big hand. She's going to do an awesome job.
Well, thank you, Dr. Hurley. So in full transparency, he has gone over his speaking limit by about 20 minutes. So we're going to speed this up. So I'm delighted to be leading the strategic plan. It's something I'm very, very excited about. I've had a few colleagues pull me aside and say, "Are you sure you want to do this? It's a lot of meetings and a lot of emails." And I'm not scared of that. I'm more excited than anything. And I think all of the enthusiasm I've seen from the campus to get involved in all the different ways we have it just excites me even more. So I want to introduce you to a few people who've been working and investing their time since this summer to make sure that the coming year is productive and representative, starting with this very General Assembly. Our strategic planning lead team consists of our faculty vice chair, Dr. Bryant White, our staff vice chair, Mr. Daryl Brown, our cabinet vice chair, Miss Amanda Tollett, our student vice chair, Miss Brooke Rogers, and our logistics lead, Miss Sarah Hansen, who you can thank for this lovely travel theme. She gathered all her peeps in Marcom and advancement, and we have this lovely travel theme for the General Assembly. So will you please join me in thanking this team for their efforts thus far? And now I have the pleasure of introducing you to our Campus Works partners, Liz, Chrissy, and Kevin. I've been working with these folks since March via Zoom, and so now that Kevin's here in person, I kind of expect him to have this virtual background that follows him everywhere. But it's really great to have him in person and his colleagues joining us via Zoom. And so will you please join me in welcoming Dr. Kevin David to the stage.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to see you all, and I'm thrilled to be here in person. I have so been needing this. I don't know about you all, but I'm getting a little tired of the remote learning and remote operations and work. So my name's Kevin David. I am the team lead for Tarleton, and I've been at Campus Works for a little bit over 2 years. And in my prior life, I was a full-time faculty member and a tenured faculty member at a regional comprehensive institution similar to this in Oklahoma, Northeastern State University, and I live in Tulsa, so that's where I come to you from today. So I want to also allow my colleagues to introduce themselves, Liz Murphy and Chrissy Coley, and I will turn it over to Chrissy.
Kevin, thank you so very much. And good morning, everyone. It is such a pleasure to be with you all today, although virtually, in my Waco virtual background here. And so, as Kevin said, my name is Chrissy Coley, and I'm Portfolio Executive Leader with Campus Works. I've been in higher ed about 25 years, serving in a variety of student affairs, academic affairs, and enrollment management roles, including serving as Assistant Vice Provost for Student Success Initiatives at the University of South Carolina, and also Vice President for Student Engagement and Success at Barton College in North Carolina. And I'm incredibly excited to be a part of the Campus Works team that is supporting Tarleton's strategic planning initiatives. It is evident to me that you all are a very student-centric institution, and I look forward to engaging with you all as a part of this process. And at this time, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce Liz Murphy, who is our Campus Works CEO and chairman of our board. Liz.
Thank you, Chrissy. Good morning, everyone. So wish I was there with you in person, but someday soon. I am delighted to be part of the team that is going to help coach you and facilitate your strategic planning journey. To create 10-year goals, which I am confident you will exceed during the course of your journey. We wanted to give you a real sneak peek. It's a little bit sneakier than it was when we originally planned it. So we're going to buzz right through and give you some high points and some things to think about relative to the process and the methodology that we're going to embark on together. We're talking about imagining the future with you. And wow, what a better time to do that, right? After what we've been through since March and continue to go through. I'm sure you're all reading the articles that are talking about the transformation in higher education. We were all talking about that before. Now there's a little fire under us to say, wow, we better really think about this, because the thing about the coronavirus is, while it took a lot away from us, it also has given us a tremendous number of opportunities to reimagine our future and to help create a new future for us that will be incredibly flexible for our students, very student-centric, and allow us to be even more responsive than we may have been in the past. In order, though, to have a chance at really capturing that future and becoming the #1 comprehensive regional university in the nation, you're going to have to continue to be relevant. And you're going to have to think about relevance in a very different way. Let me just shake up your minds a little. Could you ever imagine that a camera would no longer look like this, but like this? Did you ever imagine that buzzing around town would go from looking like this to looking like this? A complete change in paradigm. I remember when Uber came to be, I remember all the buzz was, you know, the licensing factors, the unions, all the things that kept that taxi cab industry tight would never be broken through. Now we don't just have Uber, we have Lyft, we have so many other ride share situations, right? It's totally transformed how we think about getting from point A to point B, how we think about transportation in general. Things you wouldn't call a cab for, you now will call an Uber or a Lyft for. And I don't have to, yeah, you can see what's coming next, right? We've gone from this to this. And what a shakeup of our world, right? What else are we doing that needs a major transformation? And can we be brave enough to be the ones who take the first step along that transformation? You are responsible for major shifts in our world because you're educating students for jobs that don't even exist today. And the PS at the bottom, and you're doing it with a whole lot less. So innovation and creativity and the ability to really visualize where you want to be and how you're going to get there becomes critically important. I'm going to turn it over to Kevin now to give you a little taste of the power of visualization.
Thank you, Liz. So as Liz talked about, if you want to actualize something or see a new change at the university and for your students, you really have to be able to envision what that is. So I'm going to ask you all to participate with me in a very brief exercise just to kind of show you kind of what we're talking about. So I'm going to ask if everybody could stand up, and yes, those of you at home, please play along with us. If you're watching the live stream, stand up. And so I'm going to show you what I'm going to ask you to do, and if you're close to somebody, just be careful. You might take a step aside from them. And you don't have to do this yet. I'm going to demonstrate it first. But what I'm going to ask you to do is to lift your right hand up, your right arm, and point your finger out, your index finger, okay? And what I'm going to ask you to do, and you don't have to do it yet, but I'm going to ask you to swing around clockwise and go as far as you can reach and stop and mark visually, I want you to mark where your finger's pointing. Okay, so I want you to make a note, a mental note of where your finger lands as far as you go, okay? So let's do it all together. So raise your right arm, put your finger out, spin around and go as far as you can, then visually mark in your mind where that finger was. And then swing it back around and drop your finger arm. Okay, now I'm gonna ask you to close your eyes. Okay, so close your eyes, and I don't want you to move your arms at all, but what I want you to do is just in your mind's eye, okay, thinking through this, I want you to imagine that you are doing that same exercise, and so don't actually do this, but in your mind's eye, you're lifting your arm, your fingers pointed, you're swinging around clockwise again. You get to that point that you marked mentally, but you don't stop there. You go 1 foot past that mark with your arm, and you stop there, and you have a new mark. And again, in your mind's eye, you just swing around and you drop your arm. Okay, keep your eyes closed. Now, again, just in your mind, you don't need to move your arm at all. You're imagining that you are lifting your arm again in the same fashion with your index finger pointed out. You're swinging around clockwise again, and you're stopping not at the first point. You're going past that, you get right by that, you go to the point that was a foot past it, but you actually continue to swing your arm 2 feet past that second point. And in your mind's eye, you are now 3 feet farther than the original spot where your finger stopped. Okay, and in your mind's eye, you swing back your arm, you drop your arm, and now you can open your eyes. Now, let's give it a shot again. Lift your arm and swing around. All right, I'm hearing some chuckles, some woes. How many of you went farther? Let's see, show of hands. All right, well, good. That's most everybody here in the auditorium. And the reason we do that is it's amazing. We want to visually and kinesthetically demonstrate the power of vision. Because if you can envision it, you literally can physically do it. And that is what I love about that exercise is it literally shows you, I told you the first time to go as far as you could, right? But then I told you to go farther and you were able to do it. So that we want to take that metaphor. That is a metaphor we're going to take. Oh, by the way, you can all sit. Thank you for participating. I appreciate. Thank you for indulging me. Great work. But that is a metaphor for what we're going to be doing throughout this strategic planning process. Is we are going to ask you to think big. We're going to ask you to envision being a university that you've never been before, to be the best that you can be, to serve your students and to serve your region. We want you to think big and don't worry about the how. We are going to get to the how, but we're really focused at the beginning of this process. We want you to think big and think of what can be. And that's going to start in 2 weeks. I'm going to be back, and we're actually hosting a student experience workshop you'll be hearing more about soon, where we are going to get together and discuss what does the ideal experience look like for a Tarleton student today and tomorrow. And that is where we will be, that's going to kick us off and start our visioning process for the strategic plan. There's, Liz talked about it, Dr. Hurley talked about it. There is a lot going on in higher ed. There was already, even before COVID-19. But you add that on in, and it's just a big labyrinth of challenges. The strategic plan should help clear your path to where you're going, what you're focusing on as your priorities, so that everybody gets together and has a shared understanding of, yes, this is what we're going to invest in. This is where we're going to put our time and our funding. And just a little bit about us briefly. Our approach, you're going to see, and we feel really strongly about this and passionately about these guiding principles, that you're going to see that we have a very inclusive process that encourages broad engagement. We want to hear every single voice, both internal and external to the university. And we're going to be very transparent, keeping everybody up to date about what's happening throughout the process. I was telling the executive cabinet today, we feel very strongly too about not wasting people's time. So if we're scheduling a workshop or a meeting, we want to be very clear about what we're doing then and how we're going to use the information in that meeting. So we are going to challenge you to kind of open minds. I'll be here tomorrow doing a trends in higher education presentation and a little workshop that we're going to do a little bit of interaction. It's going to be a lot of new information for folks. And that's one way just to kind of think differently about how we're serving students. But equity-mindedness is something very important to us, that we're hearing every voice. And even the traditionally underserved voices, we want to make sure are represented throughout this process. And that's not just your students, but of course it includes your students, but staff and community members as well. That is critically important to us. And we will be focusing on innovation, excellence, not just for the plan, but for Tarleton next 10 years. And making sure that is informed by good data, that some of which we're collecting, some of which you have already. I'm meeting with Morgan Carter tomorrow to talk about some great data that you already have that can be shared with the Strategic Planning Council in 2 weeks. So real briefly, our framework for the strategic plan is we have this ideal student experience at the bottom, and the mission of the institution are going to be foundational pieces that we're going to be looking at and exploring throughout the process. Resting on those, we're going to have these 10-year goals for the whole strategic plan, and we're going to chunk it down into 2 5-year measurable strategic plans, okay, that are going to, each of those plans will have 3 to 5 high-level strategies that we're going to focus on that are going to be designed to achieve those 10-year goals. And ultimately, all of those will be designed to achieve the vision for the institution that we're going to be examining throughout the process as well. And all of this work will be scaffolded by the institution's core values. So we're going to look at your core values, and we view those as owned by the employees and representing the aspirational culture that you want to work in and that you need to work in to achieve the vision for the institution. So you'll hear much more about this, but we have a series of events that this process we're kicking off today. As Credence mentioned, we've been working since March, I think, with President Hurley and Dr. Baker and the team. And we're going to go all the way through the end of March. And so we will have the strategic plan all kind of buttoned up and ready to go for the SAC COC site visit in April. The roles in the plan, we are going to have the Strategic Planning Steering Committee made up of the Executive Cabinet and Dr. Baker as the chair of the Strategic Planning Council. They're going to be running through starting with them, the review of the mission and vision. We're going to have much more input on that if there's any suggested changes, but we start the process there. The faculty, staff, and students will help design the ideal student experience. And the Strategic Planning Council and other university leaders will help us design the strategies, the high-level strategies, each of which will have measurable objectives and then action plans associated with each of those, okay? And last but not least, your core values. It's one of my favorite workshops we do is a values workshop where we invite all employees to come. It's a lot of time, it's 3 hours, but it's awesome because you really get to sit around and talk about, you know what I have always wished we did more, or how I wish we behaved. You're talking about the type of environment and culture you want to work in. And so it's a really exciting opportunity. And I want to just close by reiterating the importance of your voice. Every single one of you who are either here in person or watching on YouTube, which, by the way, my 11-year-old daughter, I'm going to tell her I'm a YouTube star now. She's going to love that. So she doesn't need to know the details. But I want to invite you. I just want to close by inviting you to participate. Get involved in this process, please. We genuinely want to hear from all of you. Some highlights of some key areas where you can jump right in is we're going to have the Student Experience Workshop in 2 weeks. There's going to be a survey that goes out first to everyone who was in the workshop, then to all employees to get some feedback on the statement that comes out of that workshop. We're going to do value survey and workshop. Please encourage your peers. Please you sign up. We really look forward to seeing you. And then I did mention we're going to have, so once we get these big 4 components, whether there's any revisions to the mission, vision, and values, and then the strategies, the 3 to 5 strategies for the next 5 years, all of that is going to go in a survey to all employees. So we make sure everyone has a voice to be able to give feedback on did we hit the mark, where are we, what's missing, and then we will take that and synthesize it for any themes. See what themes we have, and then if there are some big themes, like wow, 80% of people seem to really dislike this one word, we would make a recommendation to the Strategic Planning Council, to the Cabinet, for making any edits. And with that, there'll be more. You'll hear more about this, but I just want to thank you all for being here today. I apologize. I know I ran a little bit over time, but so thrilled that you're here and so happy to be here working with you all at Tarleton. Thank you. And I'm going to now welcome Amanda back to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. David, and thank all of you for your attendance today and being here with us. Last reminder, we want to welcome everyone again on September 30th for our State of the University. And on your way out, there are in-flight snacks and passport photos, and just out here in the lobby. We'll have a small reception out there. But first, we're going to end with the Tarleton Color Song, presented by our student singer, Mrs. Bradley Clem, who is a junior music ed major.
Oh, our hearts with joy are thrilling when the Tarleton colors wave, and our spirits rise with rapture when the Tarleton sons are brave. Fight for victory, fight for honor, and success will crown the fight. All hail the proud defenders of the